So this is going to be section 3 of 5 for the QuickBooks certification exam. And I'm not going to go too much into the QBO and showing things because I did get a few requests that I get this out earlier than anticipated. And because of that, I'm just going to go right into it. There's quite a few questions in the database that I have for this section, and I'm going to try to cover all of them. And if you come across anything new, I saw into one of my ex-students posted a question. So if you come across anything in the section that I didn't cover, please put it in the comment section for others to see. All right, so the first thing we're going to get into is subscriptions. So I did a pretty lengthy video already covering the 5 subscription levels and the prices at that time, which have considerably rose. So I'm not going to get into them and their features, but I just will state them as self-employed, simple start, essentials, plus, and advanced. You and your client both decide that the client needs to upgrade their current subscription level in QBO. But if you, and I mean you, the ProAdvisor, so if they're saying in the question, this ProAdvisor wants to change their client subscription. Okay, so if you pay for the client subscription, what steps would you take to upgrade your client? So you go to gear icon and then subscriptions and billing, accountant billed subscription tab. Then you would select subscription actions and then upgrade. So this is probably the only thing I'm going to show, but if you go over here to the gear icon, right under your company, you would see subscription and billing. Okay. And I put over a note here just in case if there's a different type of question out there, and it was saying it was the client that pays. So in this situation, it was the ProAdvisor that was paying. But let's say the client pays. You would just simply switch this out. So this over here says account billed subscription tab. Instead, you would put client billed. Okay. So if your question has the ProAdvisor paying, you would have accountant billed. If it's the client paying, you just switch this section out to client bills. All right, subscription downgrade. So they talk about this in the training section. What happens when you downgrade a client? So suppose a client comes to you and say, well, you know what, I think I'm paying too much for this. I don't need all these features. Can you bring me down to the next level? Down. So when downgrading a client subscription, what will be affected as a result of the downgrade? Now, the student that submitted this to me said the answer was all discounts will be removed. But I want you to know there's other effects mentioned. The apps can be affected because the app that you want to use might not go along with your subscription level that you went down to. And another one is features can be lost. So if you went from Plus down to Essentials or Plus down to Simple Start, you would lose the projects feature and some of the other features that come with being in Plus. So you want to definitely look into what features there are before downgrading and talking to your client about those particular things that would be removed, especially discounts. Printing subscription prices. A client wants to download an itemized invoice for their QuickBooks Online subscription preferred pricing account. That statement can be downloaded in which 2 file types? PDF and CSV. So the majority of this section is between the work tab and projects. So the work feature, which is your work tab in your QuickBooks. Just quickly look at that. Excuse me, right over here. So this is what they're talking about. And I think I have a picture in here. So the work feature in QuickBooks Online Accountant allows you to create projects and tasks right from your work dashboard for all your clients. If the client doesn't use QBO, you can add them as a client at the same time you create a project. It also allows you to assign projects or specific tasks to yourself or your other team members. Manage requests and send messages to your clients. You can see a list of the deadlines for your firm, what's due today, next week, past due. You can set up recurring project for clients and duplicate existing projects across multiple clients to save time on manual entry. So here's a picture of that screen. I just brought it up a second ago. I don't have many projects because that's just my... if you notice here, there's a question, so that's why I wanted to focus on where this is at. The filter tasks for your project. The filters is either by your client, your team member, or the project type. You see over here you have manage templates. We're going to look at the QuickStart templates. You can create a client request, we're going to talk about that as well. So here's a few questions about the work area. Which filter can be used to find a specific project when in the work area? Well, we just saw the three. I told you it was team member, client, and project type. The one particular question that was submitted to me, the answer was team member. But I wanted to also make sure you had in your notes not just team member, but you also have client and project type because they might decide to change it later. How many tasks does the QuickBooks Online allow you to assign to a project? There's no limit to the tasks. All right, so the task QuickStart template. So remember we saw there in starting a template, creating a template. One of your options is selecting an existing standard template that QBO provides. If you're mapping out a common series of tasks, you can use that. You could adjust the tasks, due dates, and the assignees to tailor it to your needs. So that's one option. You can select one of these, and here are the names: biweekly payroll, client onboarding, monthly bookkeeping, and yearly taxes. I told you to write down the 4 QuickStart template names because there are questions out there, different types, and usually they're just asking you which one of these or which 2 of these. So you need to have all 4 of them down in your notes: biweekly payroll, client onboarding, monthly bookkeeping, and yearly taxes. Those are the 4 QuickStart template names that we have currently in May of 2022. But you also can duplicate these and use them as a starting point to create a fully customized project without having to start from scratch. Or you could start from scratch, right? So here are some questions. On the client end, you as the QBOA user sent them a document. Where would your client navigate within QBO to see documents that you have shared with them? They would go down to their My Accountant and then Shared Documents. Remember, My Accountant is in the navigation pane, and they would click on Shared Documents. In the work area, project templates. In which 2 ways can you create a customized template for a project? We just talked about that. You could either create a template from scratch, or you can duplicate a QuickStart template. Client requests. You can track and edit all your requests in the work menu in the QBO account. Here you can see all your requests by filtering for requests, filter requests further by client or the assignee in your team, select any request to edit it or respond to it, and you can change the status of the request using the drop-down. You can set the status to do, in progress, blocked, or done. Facts about creating a client request in QBO accounting. So on your QBOA account, these are 2 facts for client requests. One fact is a document request notification can be sent via email by selecting the Notify Client. There's a little circle there that you'd be able to click to darken in Notify Client, and it'll send your client an email that there was a document request. So that's one fact. And another one is a document request appears in the client's QuickBooks Online company in the My Accountant menu, which we mentioned already. Changing work notifications. Where do you go to change your work notifications within your QBOA account? You'd go to the gear icon, Company Settings, Notification, and then Work Notification section. Project, on the accountant end. So in the accountant end, you'd go to the Work tab, as I showed you earlier where that is. And these are the tabs that will come up when you create a project. You'll see Overview, Transactions, Time Activity, Project Reports, and Attachments. I listed the project reports because it actually was one of the questions from the previous section. So here are the 3 project reports that you can access from projects. And your client can as well by clicking on the project in the navigation pane on the left. They also have access to creating these 3 project reports. There's project profitability, and that's how much you're making or losing on this project. Time cost by employee or vendor. See employee or vendor time costs on this project. And when they say my vendor, that's usually your 1099 contractor. And the last one is unbilled time and expenses. Find expenses and time you haven't added to an invoice. So there might be some expenses that you had incurred in the project that you have not billed your client yet. That would go here. Project status in the work tab, and this would be through the QBOA. After finishing a project, how do you change the status of the project in QBOA? You would go to the Work tab, you would go to the Status dropdown, and you'd select Done. I just took a little screenshot and snipped it out for you so you can see under each project, and you in the picture earlier that I showed you, you saw several projects, and in each project they had a to-do and a dropdown. When you click the dropdown, here's what comes up. So to do, in progress, blocked, done, and canceled. So this particular answer would be work, status dropdown, done, but just take into consideration all the other options because they may change and use different questions in the future. Now let's talk about the client end on projects. Once the project feature is activated in either QBO Plus or Advanced, a client can create their own projects from the Project tab. Again, that's in the navigation pane on the left-hand side. After the creating that project, they will see the new project added to the list of projects in that tab. Each project needs a project name and an assigned customer. The note field is optional. Each project needs a project name and I have that twice. Each project has a status, which can be either in progress, completed, or canceled. So within the client's end, on the client's end, going through the project tab, the project status could either be in progress, completed, or canceled. You can change the status by using the options drop-down at the right of each project in the list or in the project itself. If you click into the project itself, you can also change it. Now, I just want to let you know, I don't think I have any questions on this particular topic, but I wanted to make sure to make note of it because project, again, if you saw in 2020, I was saying this is just a great new feature, but I think they're going to constantly be expanding on it. It's got a lot of clients running over and getting a QBO Plus and Advanced account. So I think we'll see more questions on this. This is why I added this particular page. Project recurring. What is the correct process for setting up a recurring project for the same client, for a client? You create a new project and then use the repeat slider to turn it on because there's this little button where you slide it to the right and then it's activated. Then you would set, because as soon as you activate the repeat, then you would set the frequency and duration. Add to a project. What can be added to a project? So you're in your work tab and you want to add to your project. These are the following things we could add to the project: an invoice, receive payment, expense, estimate, time, bill, or purchase order. Here's a few questions on undeposited funds. So undeposited funds is a temporary holding account that allows you to hold received payments until they clear your bank account. You would then create a single bank deposit transfer for multiple payments, making it easier for your client or you to match the bank register with their bank statement. So step one, when receiving a payment from a customer, under the deposit to, you would select undeposited funds. Step two, once those funds are deposited, then you would go to plus sign new and you would go to bank deposit and you would select all the invoices that have been deposited. Step three, to check it, you can go to sales and then invoice, select that invoice, and on the money bar on the top right, you'll select deposited, or you can go to the deposit to and make sure you see it deposited to your checking account. Undeposited funds. A client just received a customer payment and selected undeposited funds as the deposit to account. Later that day, they created a deposit transaction to group all the payments taken to the bank. Where can they view what has been deposited? So you can go to the sales center and under invoices, you can select deposited on the money bar. Or I think we'd say more like you could see deposited on the money bar. The next question, undeposited funds. So this would be a fill-in one. So by posting to undeposited funds, you can create a single bank deposit for multiple payments, making it easy blank. So making it easy to match your bank register with your bank statement. When receiving a payment, make sure, and this would be the second fill-in, to deposit to undeposited funds, because you wouldn't actually transfer it into your checking until you make that bulk bank deposit. Here's another undeposited funds question. A customer has just recorded received payments against open invoices and does not see the payments on the bank deposit screen. What field should she review on the received payment screen? That's what I was saying earlier. You could also go to the deposit to and see where it is currently deposited to. Is it still in the undeposited funds, or is it deposited to the bank account now? I hope this makes sense. You can visualize what I'm talking about. Common workflow issues. Which common workflow error can cause duplicate expenses in QBO? This is actually a repeat question. I put this in a 2020. But they changed it just a little, so I want to make sure we have it. So you could create a bill to record a vendor expense, and then you can also create a check to the vendor for that same expense. So if you created a bill, that's something that you're expecting to get paid, that you're expecting to pay later. So it's going to sit there, and it's going to show an expense that you're going to pay later. You've already acknowledged that expense. But if you then turn around, instead of going to pay bills, and you go and create a check, you would be duplicating that expense, because when you wrote the check, you would then again acknowledge the expense. Instead, you'd be going to pay bills. I hope that makes sense. Tools to identify issues. What two tools can you use to identify possible issues in a QBO company? You can use the voided deleted transaction tool and the transaction journal report. This is something I use a lot with my students in the classroom, the transaction journal report. And then there's a lot on this. If you'd like to go down to the training section that I showed you in the ProAdvisor and training, they go into depth with this. Firm users and their access. I'm not going to go over all of them. I have them listed here, and you can always stop and read this over. But the question that's associated with this is, what are the 3 types of user permissions you can choose from in QBO? The answer is full access, basic access, and custom access. Which user has access to the voided deleted transaction tool? That would be your accountant user. And I know I showed you this before, but it's over here under your accountant tools, and under quick links you see the voided deleted transaction tool. Changing lead. How does a client update the lead for their client in QBO? You would select clients and then filter, edit leads. You would then select the new lead, and then you would click save. Here was a random chart of accounts question, and I remember I put a chart of the different features in an earlier video, which you could have maybe taken a picture of, wrote down in your notes, but this is just a random question they have here. What is the maximum number of accounts that is allowed within the chart of accounts in a QBO Plus account? The answer is 250. That's one of like a big determining factor on whether a client needs to move up to the advanced. If they have a lot of chart of accounts, they might not be able to linger in QBO Plus for long. They might have to upgrade to advanced if they need to use that unlimited, by the way. Advanced is unlimited. Creating a customer statement. You would go to Sales menu, and then you would select the Customer tab. And then you would check the customers to make statements for. In the Batch Actions dropdown, then you would select Create Statements. In the Statement Type dropdown, you would select the type of statement you'd like to make. There are 3 statement options. That is Balance Forward, Open Item, and Transaction Statement. I have a chart in the next one if you want to write down notes on what they each represent, because they may add more questions You know, at the end of the year, they like to change the database of questions a little. Next, you would set the date fields for the statement. For instance, you could show all your historic transactions involving the customer or just that current month's transaction. And then you would save. So here are the three statements and their definitions. So we have balance forward, open item, and transaction statement. And I have there, this I got from the training section. So here's a question for customer statements. A client wants to know the easiest way to let her customer know which invoices are still unpaid on their account. Which feature in QBO would you suggest they use? The statement feature we just looked at. Here's another customer statement question. Different customer statement types are available to suit different client situations. Heather wants to help her client send out a statement that reflects unpaid invoices, unapplied payments, and credit memos. Which statement type should she choose? And they have the three listed: open items, transaction statement, and balance forward. Which type of customer statements can QBO generate? Statements that show a balance forward and then all activities between two specified states. Statements that show invoices created between two specified states and their related payments. And statements that show just open transaction. And here's the last one, credit memo. What are two ways to start a credit memo in QuickBooks Online? You can go to + new and credit memo, or you can go to sales, all sales, new transaction, and credit memo. Those are the two ways. Automatic credit memo setup. A QBO user wants credit memos to automatically apply to open invoices. Where must the automatically applied credit setting be turned on? You would go to account gear icon and then accountant settings. You'd go down to the advanced tab and you'd select automation. Estimates. We have several estimate questions that we're going to end with. Estimates are non-posting transactions that your clients can send to their customers to indicate how much their product or service would cost. An estimate, as estimates move from the proposal stage to sale, clients can update the status and mark them as pending, accepted, rejected, or closed. When estimates have been invoiced in full, QBO automatically marks them as closed. So new estimate. What are the steps to create a new estimate in QBO? You go to sales, all sales, new transaction, and estimate. What are the four status types that can be assigned to an estimate in the QBO? The four are pending, accepted, rejected, or closed. After a customer approves an estimate, which feature helps streamline the purchasing process once a customer approves an estimate? You would be streamlining that by creating a purchase order from an estimate. Converting an estimate to a purchase order. What is the best practice sequence of the steps to convert an estimate to a purchase order? You would open that estimate, and in the down arrow next to the Create Invoice, you would select Copy to Purchase Order. Converting an estimate to a purchase order, a second question. When wanting to use the Copy to Purchase Order feature from within an estimate, where do you need to turn on the Use Purchase Order setting? So if we want to use this purchase order setting, where do we go to? We go to gear icon, accountant settings, expenses, and then purchase orders. Converting an estimate to invoice. How can you convert an estimate to an invoice? You'd go to sales and then customers. You select estimate and start invoice in the action column. All right, I wanted to go back up here real quick to these statements because I think there's going to be a lot more questions on them. So just wanted to go over it with you real quick if you have time. You already took your notes. So the three types of customer statements. You have the balance forward, and that shows a list of invoice payments with the balance for the date range selected. So this right here, the balance forward, is a list of invoices and payments. Open item. This is where you show a list of open and or unpaid invoices. So if you were to advise a client to use this one, they need to have a detail of unpaid invoices, unapplied payments, and credit memos. And the last one is transaction statement. And this shows all the transactions between a customer and the client between two set dates. So I'm going to come back down here as I was just thinking about this. The different customer statement types are available to suit different client situation. This client wants to help her client reflect unpaid invoices, unpaid payments, and credit memos. So I think this would be open item. I think my student might have in error send me the other one. So I think the answer here, please change your notes. So for the customer statement, for this one, for the different customer statement types, the one that would suit this particular situation where you just want to have all unpaid invoices, unapplied payments, and credit memos, that'd be open item. Because if we see here, now that I read this, it says unpaid invoices, unapplied payments, and credit memo. That's open item. So I will have to change that in my, like I said, students sent me updated questions, and I just double checked to make sure they're correct. And in this one right here, that slipped me. So the answer is just open item. All right, so I did this a little quickly because I was rushed in getting section 3 out. Give me, I hope, at the end of the week or the weekend to get section 4 done. The next couple of days I'm a little busy. All right, thank you.